The ceiling started to give way right as Zane shoved the little girl into his arms and yelled, "Hold on to me, Vive." The building groaned above them, cracks slicing through the concrete like lightning bolts as Lucas grabbed the woman by the arm and pulled her through the debris-clouded hallway. She was coughing, dazed, her eyes wide and glassy. "I said hold on," he barked, one arm cradling his 5-year-old daughter, the other yanking the stranger toward the stairwell. She stumbled beside him in heels that were definitely not built for running from collapsing office towers. "I'm my assistant," she started. "There's no time," he shouted. "Let's go." The final crunch of metal overhead was all the warning they got. Lucas threw his shoulder against the stairwell door just as the ceiling behind them came crashing down. They slammed into the dusty cement floor. She lay on top of him, her lips trembling, a graze across her cheek. His daughter was crying, clinging to his neck. "You okay?" he asked the woman breathlessly. She nodded, though her eyes were still locked on the destruction behind them. "I think so," Vive sniffled. "Daddy, is the lady hurt?" "I don't think so, baby." The woman blinked, finally seeming to realize where she was. Her hand touched her ribs, then her chest. "My phone, don't worry about it," he said. "You're alive, that's what matters." He didn't know her name, didn't ask. He was too busy making sure his daughter wasn't injured, as firefighters rushed them out of the half-crumbled structure. He didn't know that the woman he carried out of the building, her arm around his shoulder, her designer jacket torn and covered in soot, was Victoria Owen, CEO of Owen International, and the woman whose face had been on the cover of Forbes just 2 months ago. He just thought she looked scared. And way too dressed up for a place like that. 2 days later, Lucas was back at his construction job, hammering beams into place with a stiff shoulder and a bruised hip. He'd taken the job on a whim. One of the downtown skyscrapers had needed extra hands clearing debris after the incident. He couldn't afford to say no. "Lucas," he looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. The foreman pointed toward the gate. "There's someone here to see you. Fancy car. You in trouble with the law?" Lucas frowned and stepped off the scaffolding. He spotted the black SUV idling near the edge of the lot, a driver in a suit holding the door open for a woman in heels and a navy blue coat. Her. She walked across the gravel like she didn't even notice the dust clinging to her shoes. "Hi," she said when she reached him. "You remember me?" Lucas blinked. "Well, yeah, hard to forget someone you drag out of a building," she smiled. It was the first time he saw her really smile, and it hit him like a punch to the chest. "I've been trying to find you." "You left before I could even thank you." "You all right?" he asked, confused. "You didn't hit your head or anything, did you?" That made her laugh. "No, I'm good, better now." Her eyes flicked to the hammer still in his hand. "You work construction." "Sometimes I take whatever I can get." "I've got a daughter to feed." "Vivian, right?" He blinked. "You remembered her name." "I remember everything. You saved my life." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Wasn't exactly a choice. You were about to get flattened." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're a single dad." "Yeah, is her mom?" "Gone. She walked out when Vive was 2. No contact since." Victoria's expression softened. "That's a lot." Lucas shrugged. "We get by." She looked back at her car. "Listen, I was wondering if I could take you both to dinner." "As a thank you." "You don't have to do that." "I want to." Lucas hesitated. "Is this like at a real restaurant, 'cause I don't own anything fancy?" Her eyes sparkled. "I'll handle that." He raised a brow. "You're persistent. You have no idea." That night, a black car pulled up outside his apartment building, definitely not the kind of place you parked a luxury SUV. Vivian's eyes lit up as the driver opened the door for them. "Daddy, is this like a princess car?" Lucas chuckled. "Something like that." Inside the restaurant, it was all chandeliers and velvet booths. Lucas felt like a sore thumb in the tailored jacket someone had delivered to his door an hour earlier, but Vivian was grinning from ear to ear in the little sparkly dress that came with it. Victoria was already waiting. She stood when she saw them, her smile so warm it made Lucas forget for a second that he was completely out of his depth. "You clean up nice," she said, her eyes flicking over him. "You sent the clothes." "I pick well." Dinner was surprisingly not awkward. Victoria talked to Vivian like she was the most important person in the room. She asked about her favorite cartoons, her best friend at daycare, and whether she liked chicken nuggets or spaghetti more. Lucas watched, confused and fascinated. Victoria Owen, the woman who looked like she belonged on a throne, was cutting up his daughter's steak and laughing when she spilled water. After dinner, when Vivian fell asleep in the car beside him, Lucas glanced over at Victoria. "So you gonna tell me who you really are?" She turned to him, her voice quiet. "I'm the CEO of Owen International." He stared. She shrugged. "I didn't lead with that because I didn't want you to treat me differently." Lucas let out a low whistle. "So you're rich," she smiled. "Is that a problem?" He shook his head slowly. "No, but I'm guessing you don't usually hang out with guys who fix drywall for a living." "Maybe I should." Her voice was soft. "You didn't care who I was, you just saved me." He looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time that night, something shifted in his chest. "Victoria." "Yeah," he cleared his throat. "You really want to do this, like spend time with me and my kid?" She smiled gently. "I really do." And for the first time in years, Lucas felt something strange stir in his chest. Hope. Lucas wasn't sure when a simple thank you dinner turned into standing on the rooftop of a luxury hotel with a glass of bourbon in his hand. But here he was 3 weeks later, watching the skyline shimmer under the night sky while Vivian was asleep 2 floors down in a suite that probably cost more than his rent for 6 months. Victoria stood beside him, barefoot now, her heels discarded somewhere near the lounge chairs. The wind tugged at the ends of her silk blouse as she leaned on the railing, her gaze distant. "You ever feel like you're straddling 2 worlds and don't belong in either?" she asked, not looking at him. Lucas took a sip. "That sounds like a riddle." "It's my reality," she said. "Boardrooms in the morning, charity galas at night, but sometimes I forget what silence feels like." He studied her profile, the sharp edge of her jaw, the way her hair moved slightly in the breeze. "You could always walk away." She gave a humorless laugh. "And do what? Disappear? I run an empire. If I vanish, 100 people lose their jobs. Investors panic. It's not just my name on the building, Lucas. It's a chain reaction. You ever think maybe none of that matters if you're miserable?" She finally met his eyes. "I'm not miserable, but you're not happy either." She didn't deny it. They stood there a while, the sounds of the city below them a low hum. Eventually, she broke the silence. "Vivian told me she wants to be a paleontologist." Lucas exhaled through a grin. "Yeah, dinosaurs are her thing right now. Last month it was baking. Before that, she wanted to drive a garbage truck. I like that she believes she can be anything." "She can," he said. "She doesn't know the world's got opinions about girls like her yet. Girls like her. Ones without a silver spoon. Kids who grow up knowing the price of groceries before they know multiplication." Victoria leaned her head back, eyes closed. "Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I hadn't been born into it. The money, the name, if I had to earn the first million instead of inheriting it." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You think you couldn't?" She turned toward him slowly. "I didn't say that." He looked at her for a long second. "You ever had pancakes from a box mix and syrup that's mostly corn syrup?" She laughed, genuine this time. "No, but I want to now." He set his glass down. "Come to my place Saturday morning. Vivian and I make them every weekend." "You'll hate it." "I doubt that. Just don't wear anything dry clean only. I'll survive." Saturday came with the sound of cartoons and the smell of burning batter. Lucas flipped the pancake too early and half of it stuck to the pan. Vivian giggled, perched on the counter with her feet swinging. Victoria sat at the edge of the cramped kitchen table, hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a faded sweatshirt she'd borrowed from Lucas because she didn't want to ruin the blouse. She looked nothing like the woman who'd stepped out of an SUV in heels and a designer coat 3 weeks ago. Vivian handed her a plastic dinosaur. "This one's Trixie, she's a triceratops." Victoria accepted it solemnly. "She looks like a boss." She's the leader of the herd and she tells the boys what to do." Lucas pretended to groan. "I live in a matriarchy." Victoria grinned at him over her mug. "You're doing just fine." After breakfast, they played a game Vivian made up that involved dinosaurs, flashlights, and the living room couch becoming a volcano. Victoria didn't hesitate once to crawl under cushions or shout dramatic lines about lava. Later, when Vivian went down for her nap, Lucas handed Victoria a glass of iced tea and nodded toward the tiny balcony. She stepped outside, taking in the view of the parking lot and the cracked alley beyond it. It's not exactly Paris. No, but it's honest. She looked at him. You're not intimidated by me. I don't have time to be. Most men either want something or run the minute I get too close. I've got a kid who thinks I'm a superhero. I don't have the luxury of running. Victoria leaned against the railing, her voice quiet. I've been engaged before, Lucas blinked. Yeah, he wanted the brand, not the woman. You figure that out before or after the ring. After, I walked away 6 weeks before the wedding. That took guts. I didn't want to wake up next to someone who saw me as a stock option, he nodded. I get that. Took me too long to realize love ain't about convenience. Victoria turned toward him. What is it about? He held her gaze. Showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Something shifted in her expression, then not admiration, not gratitude, something deeper. Something unspoken. The silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Then her phone buzzed from the coffee table inside. She didn't move. Lucas tilted his head. You need to get that. No, she said. Not today. His eyes didn't leave hers. You sure about that? I am. And just like that, the city outside the balcony railing faded. He didn't kiss her. But something passed between them in that stillness, something solid, irreversible, something that felt a lot like falling. Lucas had never been inside a private art gallery before, but judging by the way the valet extended his gloved hand for the keys to a car he didn't own, he was already in over his head. Victoria slid her arm through his, her voice low. Just walk like you belong here. Do I look like I belong here? He asked, glancing at the marble archways and sleek security guards stationed by sculptures he couldn't pronounce. She didn't even blink. You're with me, that's enough. It had been 2 weeks since the pancake morning. 2 weeks of late-night phone calls after Vivian fell asleep, of unexpected lunches where Victoria would show up to his job site with 2 coffees and a smug look that dared him to keep pretending he didn't like it. 2 weeks of something fragile but electric growing between them. Tonight, she'd invited him to a charity event hosted by one of her foundation partners. She had a speech to give. He had no idea what he was supposed to do except not embarrass her. A staff member approached with a tablet and a murmured, "Miss Owen, they're ready for you backstage." Victoria turned to him. Will you be okay here for a few minutes? Lucas glanced around at the sea of polished suits and air-kiss conversations. Sure, I'll just admire the modern expressionism. She gave him a look. You'll be fine. He watched her disappear through a side door, then wandered toward a painting that looked like someone had tripped with a gallon of red paint. A man beside him raised his glass. Striking, isn't it? Lucas nodded slowly. Definitely makes a statement. The man turned to face him fully. Do you collect? Lucas shook his head. Just drywall and Legos. There was a pause before the man laughed. Honest, I like that. I'm Lucas, he said, extending a hand. The man shook it. Dominic West, board member. Are you a friend of Victoria's? Lucas hesitated. Something like that. Dominic's expression shifted subtly. She doesn't usually bring guests. Lucas didn't respond. He didn't have to. The lights dimmed and a hush fell over the room as a spotlight hit the center of the stage. Victoria stepped into it. She wore a black gown that shimmered like ink under the lights, her hair swept up, her posture regal without effort. But her voice was calm and grounded as she spoke about expanding access to arts education in struggling districts, about building bridges between privilege and potential. She didn't read from notes. She didn't need to. Lucas stood frozen, watching her command the room not with force but with clarity. She didn't have to raise her voice to hold their attention. She was the storm and the calm after it. When the applause came, it was thunderous. Cameras flashed. Waiters resumed circulation. But Lucas stayed where he was. Dominic reappeared beside him. She's extraordinary, isn't she? Lucas nodded. Yeah, she is. Later, she found him by a sculpture that looked like twisted metal and regret. Sorry that took so long, she said. You didn't tell me you were a rock star, he replied. She smiled faintly. I figured the pancakes would balance it out. I think they did. Her gaze moved over his face. You sure you're not overwhelmed? I'm not sure of anything, he said, except that I can't stop looking at you. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she reached for his hand. There's something I want to show you. It's quiet. She led him through a side corridor and into a room that felt more like a sanctuary than a gallery. The walls were lined with photographs, black and white portraits of children in classrooms, murals in progress, music students practicing with borrowed instruments. "These are the kids from the pilot program I funded 3 years ago," she said. "Some of them are graduating this spring." Lucas looked at the photos, the joy in them, the defiance, the hope. "This is what you do," he said quietly. "It's what I want to do more of," she said. "But it's hard to keep your footing when everyone around you is measuring your worth in profit margins." He turned to her. "You don't need their approval. Maybe not, but I still want to be seen, truly seen." Lucas reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her temple. "I see you." She didn't flinch. "Lucas." Her voice was almost a whisper. "What are we doing?" "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I know I'm not walking away. I'm afraid," she admitted, "if this becomes real." "We don't have to name it tonight," he said. "But I think about you when I'm not supposed to. I look forward to every message. I watch my daughter light up when you walk in the room. That's real enough for me." She leaned into him then, slowly, deliberately, their lips met like a secret finally spoken aloud. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't tentative, it was sure, like two people who had waited long enough. When they pulled apart, her fingers lingered against his jaw. "I should warn you," she said. "My world doesn't slow down, it only gets louder." He nodded. "Good thing I know how to hold steady." She laughed softly, the sound curling into his chest. "Come on," she said. "Let's go home before someone mistakes you for a new donor and asks for $1 million pledge." He grinned. "I've got $20 and a rewards card for hardware supplies." "Perfect," she said, taking his hand again. "You're already more useful than half the board." They left out the side exit, away from the cameras, into the kind of night that didn't need chandeliers to sparkle. Neither of them said it out loud yet, but it was already happening, and they both knew it. The elevator doors slid open to reveal polished floors, a view of the river through floor-to-ceiling windows, and a scent in the air that reminded Lucas of cedarwood and confidence. He adjusted the strap of Vivian's backpack on his shoulder and glanced down at her. "You ready?" Vivian nodded, clutching her stuffed stegosaurus. Lucas stepped into the penthouse, his boots silent on the hardwood, marveling at how the city sprawled beneath them like something from a dream. A few steps ahead, Victoria was already on the phone, pacing near the terrace doors with one hand on her hip and her voice low, firm. She wore a crisp navy blouse and jeans, but she looked like she had been sculpted to belong in places like this. She caught his eye and mouthed, "Just a minute." Vivian wandered toward the grand piano that curved like a wave in the corner of the room. Lucas hovered behind her, unsure if he should touch anything or breathe too hard. Victoria ended the call and crossed the room. "Sorry about that." The museum's restoration shipment got delayed. Again, Lucas raised a brow. "You're curating museums now?" "Just one," she said, setting her phone down. "They asked me to be a guest advisor on the youth arts expansion. I didn't want to say no." He glanced around. "So this is your real place?" She gave a small nod. "I don't bring a lot of people here." Vivian pointed to the balcony. "Can I go out there?" "I'll come with you," Lucas said, following her through the open doors. The view was dizzying. Below, the river caught the afternoon light like liquid glass. Boats drifted lazily, and the wind tugged at his sleeves. Vivian pressed her forehead to the glass railing and made dinosaur noises at the sky. "You ever think about what it means?" Victoria asked quietly behind him. What means, all of this, having so much, being able to change things or ruin them with a single decision?" He turned to face her. "You're not the ruining type." "I used to wonder," she said, folding her arms. "Sometimes I've made calls that hurt people. I've signed contracts that shut down departments just to keep investors happy. It's hard to know where the line is between ruthless and responsible." Lucas leaned against the railing. "You're allowed to grow. No one gets it right all the time." "I want to get it right with you," she said. He blinked. "That's not a business deal, Victoria, I know." Her voice was steady. "That's why it scares me." He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "You think we're too different?" "I know we are. Does it matter?" She looked at him. "It shouldn't." Vivian tugged on his shirt. "Daddy, I'm hungry." Lucas crouched to her level. "Okay, Peanut, let's see if Miss Victoria has anything edible in this palace." Victoria opened the fridge and laughed. Unless she wants imported olives and sparkling water, I might need to call for delivery. Vivian wrinkled her nose. Do you have grilled cheese? Lucas glanced sideways. I can make it. I brought a sandwich press. You brought what? It travels with us, like a sacred relic. Half an hour later, the smell of butter and crisped bread filled the kitchen. Vivian sat on a bar stool swinging her legs, while Victoria watched Lucas flip sandwiches with the focus of a surgeon. You know, she said, I just realized no one's ever cooked in this kitchen before. He raised an eyebrow. Not even you. I don't really spend enough time here. He slid a plate in front of her. Maybe you will now. She picked up the sandwich, took a bite, and closed her eyes. This is better than half the 5-star meals I've had. Vivian beamed. Told you my daddy's the best cook. After dinner, the three of them curled up on the oversized sectional. Vivian fell asleep between them, her dinosaur tucked under one arm. The city lights flickered against the windows, but inside it was warm and still. Lucas looked at Victoria. You ever think about what this could be? She didn't answer right away. I used to think I had to choose between the life I built and the life I wanted. And now, I think maybe I was just waiting for someone who saw past the glass and steel. He reached for her hand. You don't have to prove anything here. She looked down at their fingers. I want to prove it anyway. He didn't ask what she meant. The next morning, she showed him when he came downstairs after getting Vivian dressed. The living room had been transformed. A small table had been set by the window, covered in dinosaur-themed decorations, a stack of picture books, and a note that read, Breakfast with Trixie. Vivian gasped. Is this for me? Victoria nodded. Trixie deserves a royal breakfast. Lucas took her aside near the kitchen. Did you do all this morning? I had some help. But yes, she said. I wanted her to feel like she belonged here. She already does. Victoria looked up at him, her eyes shining. So do you. Later that day, they took a walk through the park near the river. People passed by with dogs, joggers waved, and a street musician played something mournful on a violin. Victoria paused near the water. I've been thinking. That sounds dangerous, he teased. I want to do this for real. He turned to her. We are doing it? No, I mean all of it. I want to build something that lasts. With you, with her. He studied her face, the sincerity in it, the strength. You sure you're ready for the mess that comes with us? He asked. I'm ready for the beauty of it, she said. He took her hand. Then let's do it. 3 months later, a small ceremony unfolded on a quiet estate outside the city. There was no press, no announcements, just a garden, a few close friends, and vows whispered under a canopy of blooming white roses. Vivian wore a flower crown and held both their hands during the vows. Lucas looked into Victoria's eyes and saw the fire, the grace, the woman who had walked through dust and fear and come out shining. Victoria looked back and saw the man who had given her the one thing no wealth ever could. A home. They kissed as petals fell around them, and somewhere in the distance, Trixie the Stegosaurus sat proudly on a chair, guarding the cake. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. Lucas stepped into the boardroom wearing a navy button-down that Victoria had once joked made him look almost obscenely respectable. He'd fought her on it, of course, but when she asked him to join her at Owen International's quarterly charity summit as a guest speaker for their new community trades initiative, he hadn't said no. Not because he liked stages, but because she'd asked. Victoria stood at the head of the room, speaking to a panel of partners from across the country: architects, nonprofits, private investors. She didn't glance at her notes once. She didn't need to. Lucas waited until she finished, then stepped forward. He wasn't used to microphones or conference tables polished enough to see your reflection in, but when he started talking about the kids he'd been mentoring in the pilot program, the room quieted in a way he understood. He told them about the boy who'd built a bookshelf from scrap and gave it to his grandmother. About the girl who wired her first light switch and lit up like the bulb she'd fixed. About the kid who never spoke in class until someone handed him a drill and said, "Here, show me." When he finished, Victoria gave him a nod that said more than applause ever could. After the meeting, she caught up to him in the hallway. You had them leaning forward in their chairs. I was just being honest. That's why it worked. He pulled her aside into an empty alcove near the windows. You ever regret saying yes to this, to us? She didn't hesitate. Never. There's been noise, he said. I know some people think I'm not polished enough for this world. She stepped in closer. I don't want polished, I want real, and you make this world better just by being in it. He brushed her hair behind her ear. You sure you're ready for what comes next? Her brow lifted. What comes next? He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. Vivian made this last night, said I had to give it to you. She wrote it in purple crayon. Victoria took it and unfolded it carefully. Inside was a drawing of 3 stick figures, one tall with a hammer, one in heels with long hair, and one with a giant smile and a crown. Above it, in crooked letters, were the words, Our family. Forever. Her eyes filled. She asked me last week if we were going to stay with you forever. I told her forever only works if both people say yes. Victoria looked up. So I get a say. Lucas reached into his coat again and pulled out something small. Not a box. Just a ring, silver, modest but beautiful. A single diamond set in a band engraved with small leaves, like something you'd find in a storybook. I didn't want a speech, he said. Just a question. Will you marry me, Victoria? She didn't blink. Yes. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her before the moment could even finish settling. 3 days later, they stood in a garden on the edge of a cliffside that overlooked the ocean. No suits, no press. Only a handful of people, Vivian in a flower dress, Lucas's old mentor from the trades program, Victoria's godmother, and a few others who mattered. Victoria wore a dress with no train and no veil, just open sleeves and a soft green sash that Vivian had insisted on because you look like a forest queen. Lucas wore a vest and rolled sleeves, his hands slightly calloused from helping finish the new community center that would open next month with Victoria's funding and his team's work. They exchanged vows under the arch of climbing white roses and eucalyptus, with Vivian standing between them, holding both their hands. After the ceremony, Victoria sat barefoot on a picnic blanket with her heels kicked off and her dress rumpled, feeding Vivian strawberries and laughing when Lucas tried to pretend sparkling cider was champagne. Later that night, after the guests left and silence returned, Lucas and Victoria stood on the deck of the cottage they'd rented for the weekend. The ocean was dark and endless, the stars scattered like wishes. She leaned into him. You know, I never thought I'd want something simple. He kissed the top of her head. It's not simple, it's solid. I like solid. He tightened his arm around her. You and me, we built this, all of it. And we're not finished, he smiled. Not even close. Inside, Vivian was asleep on the couch with a blanket over her and a dinosaur tucked under her chin. Victoria looked over at her. She asked me today if she could call me Mom. Lucas didn't say anything at first. Then, and what did you say? I told her only if she wanted to. He looked at her. And did she? Victoria nodded, her voice soft. Yeah, she did. They stood there a while longer, listening to the waves and the sound of wind through the trees. Victoria turned to him. I love you, Lucas. I love you too. They kissed under the stars with the scent of salt in the air and the promise of everything ahead. They didn't need fireworks or headlines. They had each other. They had forever.